What's up, new types? This is Average Bloom or Isaac here with my buddy Taylor or Vindarius, and we're going to be going over a deck that we recently won a new type challenge with, or at least my homie here did. We worked on it
Yo,
together, and yeah. How are we feeling, man?
honestly, it was a great change of pace, after playing, Blue White Unicorn for so long, but funny enough, I still ended up playing a unicorn in this list, funny enough.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's really hard to get away from that card. It seems like.
Well, I mean, now I got Banshee as my new one, and, I like this one a lot, I won't lie.
True, true. And actually, yeah, let's just get into it. So, the deck that you were able to get your second new type challenge win in this season, right?
Yes, it was the season.
Yeah, awesome. The second one, he's got a double here, double kill, and he was able to get it with this blue red cruise control deck that we worked on together.
Yeah, honestly, like, for this list, I will say things that I really liked about it was just it was still familiar, right? It played a lot of blue pieces that I was familiar with, with like Gundam, Amuro, Show Resolve. I've played with cards like Corsica and Anksha and Guntank and like Agrolus. But getting to play it with the red suite of like Kshatriya and Marita and like all these other burn commands, it really helped deal with a lot of problematic situations.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then you also get the really cool new tool with Gundam Exia as another like aggro answer.
Yeah, that card, honestly, it's every time I see it in my hand, it's always the thing where like the deck is now designed in a way where like it's best against aggro, and we can see why because when we have cards like close combat or improved technique, those cards are like immediate. Like I play this to answer the dude on the board right away. Now with Exia though, it does that job tenfold because not only does it answer one dude, it answers two dudes, and so all of a sudden we got a 2-for-1 trade for
Mm-hmm.
two cost, right?
Yeah.
That's honestly a premium in this game.
Yeah, and even if you're against Blurple and they go and they ping it, most of the time it already killed a thing. It takes the ping away from something else. This is an exchange that's still pretty favorable for you.
Yeah, and funny enough, it probably will never get pinged because by the time you swing with it, you swung into another aggro dude, so it never could have been pinged in the first place.
That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. Well, if they have the Mikazuki or the Adapt, but otherwise,
Ah, yes.
most of the time, this is just a two for one. Yeah.
Now let's see.
Um.
So,
So
for
overall, what did you like about this deck? We have a couple of changes from what's like the norm. It looks like.
okay, like I'll go into like what I methodology when I looked at this list and I sat down and I played it. My ideology was to do 1-for-1 trades as a general basis with my units, right?
Hmm.
And with my commands as well. I'll leverage my shields and my life as card advantage at certain points in the game.
Hmm.
Where like if I get a close combat, that's a free +1. So as a I improved technique in life. But otherwise, I'll use cards like Exia and Anksha and Gundam to do my 1-for-1s or, 2-for-2s, right?
Hmm.
And as I'm stabilizing and I'm answering these cards, we have so many turns that are starting to progress into the game where
Hmm.
we get to end game, which is cards like Banshee or G-Quex, right? Banshee, of course, you need 12 cards and discard, but if you're already doing 2-for-2 trades, and we're at turn 6 and we've been doing that for X amount of turns, we're at like 9, 10 cards already around like turn 6
Hmm.
very easily, especially if I'm losing life at the same course of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Plus, a lot of the time, you're saying like one for one trades, but with the way that a lot of these cards are designed, we're actually able to generate a lot of advantage and effectively accumulate card advantage through things like Guntank and Anksha being able to ping, and if they kill something and they still live, that's a card they still have to answer. It's effectively answered a card. That's you going +1. Or when you go Gundam Amuro and you tap down a unit, you get to eat the unit. It still lives and repairs, and they still have to answer it. Even if they go and they link into it in response and they get to kill it, you've still gone up one card because they had to go three cards deep, the one that you killed initially, and then the new link in order to just deal with your two cards. Or when we start getting into the bigger things like Kshatriya and G-Quux,
yeah.
my god, there's a lot of times where this thing is you link this with Merida or Marita, you immediately get the effect. It probably kills one unit. You get to attack. The Merida effect kills another unit, and then they have to still answer it. And so it's your two cards that answered probably what, four cards? That's huge.
Yeah, another thing that happens with this deck, it probably exemplifies itself a lot more than Blurple, but what Blurple does is like when it swings at you with its pieces, at times, right, you'll have to answer them, and your guys take damage, right, and they have these tiny little ping charges of like one damage here, and effectively it salvages the value exchange, so it's always one for ones no matter what on their side. But
Hmm.
for us, because we not only have ping units like Gun Tank and Anksha, yeah, we have bigger damage pools with like close combat and IT to close that gap even more efficiently over time.
Hmm. Yeah, and then
Uh,
with our top end of like G-Quux being able to also do so much damage on its own, three is a lot. Just it enters, usually just blows up a unit, and then it's still this suppression unit that just completely threatens to take over the game, if not just like kill them right there.
yeah, no, that's definitely how it's been for me, at least when I was playing it. And the thing with this type of deck is like I played it like basically a tempo deck where I'll try to get to end game, right?
Hmm.
And uh, the things that I experienced though with it was when my opponents start noticing that, they start to not like to if I start having units on board, they'll end up not swinging with their units to make it so I have to engage them with like my burn commands and everything. So with that being the case, I usually have to find different ways of like engaging the board states. So instead of using all my burn right away, right, I'll use cards like Nahel or Gama. The card was fantastic when
Hmm.
like I just needed to tap down a dude and start, engaging the board, right? Or
Yes.
again, Omro did the job as well. And
Oh
then
yeah,
there's just
we all know how broken this card is.
the other thing too is because the curve is low enough for this, like cost curve. I would even play cards like Gun Tank and Exia aggressively without value, right? I wouldn't sometimes where it's like, no, I don't need the Gun Tank ping here because what I need is to play more units than my opponent to go for a checkmate, so to speak. So if I start to have
Hmm.
more leverage against them, then they have to engage with me somehow. And it's like it's kind of like the thing I like about this deck is you have a lot of say of like where the damage is going to go when you have resources untapped on your opponent's turn. And
Hmm.
if your opponent starts coming at you, again, that's where your life, you start leveraging it and like you can just take over the game because you have a close combat that answered a dude that was going to block one of my guys next turn cycle, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that shows just a great understanding of knowing what your position is or what you're supposed to be doing depending on the matchup. So if you're against these other like red white for instance, being
Hmm.
able to recognize that hey, I don't need to have the value off of the gun tank ping or the Exia. I'm not even going to get it off of the Exia.
You
So
won't.
just
Yeah.
throwing it out there and being like, "Hey, I need to be the aggressor. I am going to be pushing. You have to answer me. And it's still going to be a one, hopefully a one for one that we can force in. Because if your gun tank can take a shield and they kill it, even if the thing that killed it is still alive, you ripping the shield, that's effectively you taking a card.
Yeah, it is. And your opponent has to find a way to efficiently answer it while also dealing with all your other quality units like Gundam and Kshatriya. And I mean, also we have like cards like Forbidden Gundam in the list.
Hmm.
And
I was
that
actually
proved
about
it.
to ask about that. What was your feeling on this card?
I liked Forbidden Gundam because it made it so that I didn't have to. I could actually be pseudo aggressive with like just pushing like one unit or two at most at my opponent.
Hmm.
And then I can then leave Forbidden Gundam up because now if my opponent tries to do a link play, say with like Air Strike or like Gundam or something like that, I can still two for two it with like Forbidden Gundam and a close combat, or if we're on a level 6 curve, I can do it with an IT as well for Gundam. Not Air Strike because it's level 5 unless you have enough improved techniques in
Hmm.
discard.
But you could still use like close combat in conjunction with like some pings or with Kshatriya and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like at times too, I will sometimes like build up damage over the course of like rotations, like turn 2 to turn 4. So when I get to my bigger plays at turn 5 with like Kshatriya, I've already loaded up enough like damage on my opponent's board that I start cleaning it up if they're aggressive at me at any point.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess my last question, as far as well, two more questions. Overall, what did you think of this base split with Corsica and Nahel? Do you feel as
Yeah.
though there's any world where you should be playing the O6, the mining asteroid, or that you should be playing white base or anything like that?
Yeah, because in lists like this, they try to do like longevity. I went with the philosophy of longevity with resources, card resources. So with Corsica, it was a great way to say like I have a 4/2 that can exchange itself with one of my opponent's units,
Hmm.
or my opponent has to answer it with a 1 for 1. But I played the base, so I'm still up a card because they had to waste a card on the token. So that's great. Um, so like, if I'm doing a attrition game, I should come out ahead. Then,
That makes sense.
Nahel Argama was really good when I needed to basically I needed the board to start engaging, right? I need my opponent to feel like, oh, I'm starting to lose control of this state. I have to start swinging back. So like Nahel would just suspend one of their guys, and I would swing over with Gundam, and I would repair, and I get that free card advantage essentially. But there's other incidences like again, like I said earlier, I leverage off my life or my shield, so like they could hit close combat, they can hit improved technique, they can hit not hit or gamma, and all of a sudden it throws the entire board states. Like what my opponent was planning to do can just be thrown out
Yeah.
in like an instant of the wrong life being triggered.
Yeah, the amount of
Um,
bursts that this deck plays is honestly impressive. We have what here? This is 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 21 bursts altogether. So almost a half of our, oh, very close to half of our deck is just bursts. So if they're hitting our shields, who knows what is that's about to happen? Really anything.
that's a free +1, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I guess the last question, as far as going over the list specifically, is we got this one of Neon. This was originally based on the winning regional list that did well, and they were not playing the Neon, and there was a couple other changes. What's your opinion on this?
So like I know what list you're talking about. That list was playing more of like a Gundam base where they were playing like RX-78, level 4, and they were playing the level 6 Gundam, that's a 6/3, and they were even
Mm-hmm.
playing NP1, the level 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were being like a Gundam based blue red list. With this though, this list that we're looking at, it was still trying to focus on the value of being a red based deck, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Nian here, we took out like Gundams in exchange for better assets, or not better assets, I'd say, but different assets for different jobs. We put in a third G-Quux as another finisher, right? Because that was the thing that happens with this deck is now when I get to like level 7s and level 8s, you start seeing these big turns from like Banshee or G-Quux.
Yep.
But with Nian in specific, because we play three G-Quux, it's now kind of I was like justified to play up at least a one of in this deck because we already get so much card advantage from our life or drawing cards with like show resolve that Nian can just sneak up on a G-Quux and all of a sudden you have a 7/7 with suppression that's coming at you immediately, and it's not fun. It's
Yeah.
fun for you if you're the one doing it.
Yeah, no.
Um,
The ability to out of nowhere sometimes just link a G-Quux and effectively close the game out is really powerful. The other application of this, though, as we found in our game that we, because you and I actually played against each other at that new type that you won, where you were able to go Neon on a Gundam that you had out the turn prior to go and eat into my Gundam, still live and repair.
Yeah, because it was a 5/6 stat line. Because with a 1/2 pilot going on Gundam, it's a 4/5, but because it's paired with Gundam, it gets a +1. So we're looking at a 5/6 stat line.
Yeah.
And obviously, like that's where you want to be at this point in the format is like if your link unit isn't 5 power and more than 5 HP, you aren't going to have the most effective trades. And that's what like even just a simple pilot like a 1/2 pilot can do
Hmm.
for a unit like Gundam, right? Gundam is like one of the most powerful units that we're playing right now because of all these blue based decks. And just because like all my other units get +1, it starts compounding on itself, right? A ninth
Hmm.
pilot means that I have that many more chances to say I don't need to put my pilot for a link when I can do it for a better situation right now. And
Yeah.
so like I had situations with like Gundam and I was going against like a blocker based deck where I put the pilot on him and I start swinging with all my units. Yeah, my opponent's starting to block them all and my units are dying, but now I'm starting to shore it up with like Kshatriya and like do 3 ping charges and just clear out the board and
Yeah.
I'm ahead at that point.
Yeah, and what originally seemed to be a favorable exchange for them is now completely the other way. And you, like you said, you just clear their board. You're getting more pressure in with the Kshatriya. Then your Gundam is still around. They still have to deal with it, and it's so fat. I mean, what can we say? We love big butts, and it's hard to lie.
Well, and also, because again, though, on numbers, right? It's we also play Forbidden Gundam, so we are privy to the privilege of having a 5/6 blocker,
Yup,
which
that
a
can't be
6
Amuro
health,
down.
yeah, a 6 health blocker, fantastic. And even better is like I can free trade over level 2 units and it doesn't get damaged.
Yup.
Or tokens, right? So if my opponent swings at me with a tall geese, I let it go through, I can just swing over with a Forbidden Gundam. It's not even a problem.
Yeah, just get to eat the tall geese. I've actually had that situation before where I attacked into the tall geese token, and they probably thought it was just gonna trade, and then they ate it, and then they were like, "What happened here?"
Yeah. Well, and it's also it's kind of a premium to have blockers in a non-white deck. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's hard to come by, but like a card like Forbidden Gundam, it definitely held its place for the list. Just being able to pace out like if you need to be aggressive for a turn cycle or you need to be more defensive.
Yeah. And with the way that this is cost as well, being able to have a three, so on six, you can just double play unit with playing two of this. It's and still be this aggressive leaning deck if you want.
Yes, it was very effective at that. I had another turn cycle where it was just like Forbidden Gundam with a Nahil Argama, and it was all kinds of crazy for my opponent to be like, "Oh, now I lost a unit because you attacked over it. Oh, now I have to push through a Forbidden Gundam." And even if I did a link turn, they're going to take 4 damage. And again, because it's a blue-red deck, I'm shoring it up with all this ping damage.
Yeah. Well, I guess what are your overall thoughts with the matchups for this deck? Like, when would you want to be bringing this again? When do you think it's not good to bring it? I would think that just generally speaking, this deck is fantastic into aggro. Whether it be 1 Year War or Blurple or the purple red rush deck that's also been gaining some steam, it seems.
Yeah, Purple Red had a flash in the pan for a moment. I saw that with like Bukus and everything.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and because like purple base decks, they deal a lot of damage to their units. They have to be mindful, right? A good like purple player will know how to assess their damage on their units, like their self damage,
Hmm.
so that like I don't like have free reign of just burning them out with like Kshatriya pings or free card advantage through like Anksha and Guntank and Exia.
Hmm.
But yes, this deck is very effective against aggro-based decks because again, against aggro, the goal against aggro is to stabilize. And what we mean by stabilize here is like my either your units are bigger than theirs on average in your deck as a whole, or you are getting card advantage through effects through like close combat or approved technique being in your life,
Hmm.
or getting better trades through like Gundam eating a dude or Kshatriya pinging off multiple dudes in a single turn rotation. And that's what helps us get to stabilizing. And because we play like low cost answers like Exia and close combat, we can live to turn 4 pretty effectively with some engagement that now all of a sudden when they start swinging at this, I'll go gun tank Anksha and kill another unit, and I'm still fine to keep trading over my units on theirs
Hmm.
because I will win the end game.
Yeah, yeah, because you're going to be the bigger one. You have card advantage. You have the answers. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. How do you feel about against red white, just generally speaking, whether it be like the Neo Zhong version or the G Quux heavier version or the Seed Strike
Uh,
version?
yeah, so like when we don't do aggro lists, aggro's not really pertain to white. So let's cover that. So yeah, with white-based decks in general, they're at a point where they're very good at mid-range and
Yeah,
late game.
yeah,
And you as the blue-red pilot in this instance have to sniff out what you're playing against, right? If I know I'm playing against red whites, right? If I see overflowing affection and I see one red card, I have to guess one of two things. Either A, my opponent is a mid-range deck that leverages a lot of Justice Gundams and the like, or they're a Neo Zeong list. And what we know with Neo Zeong lists is if you're a mid-range deck going into the late game against Neo Zeong, you will lose.
yes.
It's not a debate.
Yeah,
And so
no, the
you
way that that card can just take over a game and warp the entire situation to be around it is kind of absurd, to be honest.
It is. And so with that being the case, you need to know what you're playing against when it's a white based deck. There's other things like green white wing, right, where it has a top end, but the goal here is once you know what type of top end they play, right? Once you start, getting an idea, you then have to ask yourself, how aggressive do I need to be in this game? Because once you know that, you now know on what trades you need to efficiently answer while you have to be preserving at different turn cycles, right? So like when I go against Banshee, right? Banshee Norn with League Limit Militaire in particular, I have to think of, well, because the big boy Banshee can't be damaged, and same thing with Delta Plus if it has the pilots, Riddy, right? The prevent two effect damage.
Hmm.
I'm going to be more liberal with all my bird damage in the early game and just get it out. I don't need it for late game. I want my units for late game to better leverage against those situations, right?
Yeah.
If I go against Neo Zeong, then it's a matter of like, okay, well, if I lose in the late game, I'm gonna make it so I don't get the late game, or they get a single turn at level 9 to play their one guy, and I'm just gonna go for a closeout. And so I'll be aggressive. I'll start throwing my units at them with like Ankhs and Exias. Yeah, they'll block them, but again, like we talked earlier, we'll be able to shore it up with free trades with like Kshatriya pinging
Hmm.
off and shoring up the damage output on basically like pushing through, right? So if I play Kshatriya and I link it, I can then like ping the two militia flats or Lifris that have 2/4, and now all of a sudden they're 3 health. Now all of a sudden, Anksha's answer through them. My ITs can answer them, as a 1-for-1 trade.
Hmm.
And then Gundam in that instance makes it so that I get an Anthem. So I will be more liberal on my pilots. I will just slap a pilot on my Gundam sometimes. I've done it with Marita. I've done it with Nian,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden my units are now 4 power or 3 power, and now their blockers have to trade through it. I don't have
Yeah.
to deal with blockers, right?
You're
And all of
able
a
to
sudden I'm
like
able to,
finally kill the Lafriths or be able to deal with if they're playing the launcher strike, the 3/4 or stuff like that, or if they have the ale strike that doesn't have a pilot on it.
yes. And that's the other thing is like thinking about link plays. That's the other key point with this deck. You have to think about like what link plays your opponent can have at each turn cycle to best say, should I have resources open for this or not for like close combat, right?
Hmm.
Because like if your opponent says, "Hey, I'm gonna swing at you with Ale Strike," yeah, it's gonna suck that you're gonna lose Gundam right there. But if you answer it right now with close combat, you're able to basically say, "Hey, we're still neutral on the amount of units on board. I'm gonna now play all my units on my turn because I left that 2 resources open on the previous rotation to close combat it to just slam all the early units."
Hmm. Um, what do you feel about against wing, or do you feel like it's the same as red white, or do you feel like it's a different dynamic, like maybe more in your favor since they don't have the access of, for instance, Neo Zhang or things like of that nature?
Yeah, so for a deck like that, it depends on what the turn cycle says is like if your opponent has a 4/5 wing, right? It means that you have to think about what like what I talked about earlier is like having 2 resources open for a card like close combat, right? Your opponent swings with a wing or has a wing on board. If they play piecemeal, it makes your life a lot harder, right? Because if they swing over your dude, they'll heal, right? So I'll leave
Hmm.
up like cards like close combat so that I can basically say, hey, I'll deal 2 damage to your wing right here, and when it goes to kill my Anksha, it'll just die on the spot. It won't even get to heal. We're past that point, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So like for a deck like that, it's gonna be a matter of like how the wing player capitalizes on their big units. So if they get their heroes, it makes it a little harder. But that's where cards like G-Quux or Banshee are like haymakers. Banshee being able to say, I have first strike and I'm at 7 power, meaning I can swing over a Gundam wing for free and still swing with it again, is astronomical tempo swing in
yeah.
that matchup.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree there. Or sometimes because of all of the burn and everything, you have the ability to eat even if it's a linked wing zero. Sometimes you can just first strike that down.
yeah, so if you have like close combat and a 7/5 Banshee with first strike. Yep, it's a free trade on a wing zero right there.
Yep.
But again, though, that comes with you being the aggressor, right? You have to know if I'm going against a late game deck, I need to be more liberal with my units or my burn at different turn cycles, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the blockers aren't there when we start slamming cards like G-Bucks, or we start slamming cards like Banshee, right, at that end game to
Yeah.
answer those problems.
I guess the last decks to kind of go over would be the purple white Destiny Barbados deck that's been kind of popping, and then different blue white variations. I feel like this deck is pretty favorable against the purple white Destiny decks that have been going and doing well, just because we
Yeah,
have so many ways to answer a lot of their bodies. They have a lot of pretty small bodies, like the 4/2s or the 5/3, and we have so many ways to be able to just answer these bodies and just get through.
yeah. The thing I've noticed about it kind of shows like the benefit of being a red base deck is like you're able to shore up that card advantage with ping damage, and that's
Hmm.
what Destiny kind of lacks in, right? If they're having to be aggressive, right, towards like answering my units, um, if I have any ping damage, right, I can get easy like one for one conversions. But
Hmm.
the Destiny player doesn't have access to that. So all of a sudden, like, yeah, I just swung over their Impulse Gundam and my Banshee took 3, but there's nothing in their deck that can deal 2 damage, like indirectly to like like offshore that discard advantage, right, for them.
Hmm.
So it's like again, it comes into that spot of like, hey, I'm able to be the tempo deck because I play cards like Gundam and I play cards like Kshatriya where I'm just pushing over right at that turn 4, turn 5 cycle. Um, I think the part where it would get hard is if your opponent can get to Destiny Gundam, but again, that's a matter of like knowing your role. You need to know if I'm using my commands early. And also, you're going to be using a lot of your commands early against the Destiny matchup because it instantly answers cards like Impulse Gundam with IT, or a ping damage with like gun tank in a close combat, or it also answers Rick Diaz as well. Um, and so all of a sudden, when we get to those turn cycles where it's like, hey, now they're playing cards like, um, uh, what's his face, like Ale Strike, we can say, well, do I want to attack the Ale Strike or do I want to attack you, the Destiny player? And have like a card like Forbidden Gundam up. So now you have to decide: do I do a 2 for 2 trade with my Ale Strike into the Gundam, or do I have to risk there being a close combat in my hand because they have a Forbidden Gundam on board with 2 resource up, right?
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And
Yeah,
then,
so I
mhm,
I think again though, like if you're going against the endgame decks, think about your role as far as like if you use your units to trade more or if you use your burn more to deal with different link plays. You know, think about the opponent's links and think about their end game.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I do think that makes if you're going to be piloting a deck like this, then you want to be able to have a good understanding of what your position is, depending on the specific matchup that you're going against, knowing whether or not you want to be the aggressor and the other go big, or how it is that you want to be leveraging your specific cards like Banshee or the G-Quux, your big haymakers, and how to be able to effectively get the most out of them. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because like I think the best way I can say it too for like non-red based players is like it's like when you play like Lifrith or you play like Rick Diaz,
Mhm.
right? You have to think about should I leave should I play 2 blockers on this turn cycle or should I play one and see if my opponent swings at it with a Gundam Amuro and then I can naval bombardment, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to think about what the links are from the deck and you get the best out of your deck when you play commands like these.
Yeah. And I guess like the last thing to be going over as far as matchups to think about, I feel like blue white, generally speaking, whether it's the League Militaire deck or it's the Unicorn variant that we've been promoting, or
Yeah.
the O version, I feel like almost ubiquitously that's going to be a like either a 50-50 to a poor matchup, I would think.
I would say yes on the merit of like it, it depends on like how effective your game plan is. So
Yeah.
sometimes with this deck, one of the drawbacks can be that you have you have close combats and everything, but you don't have good units with good power on them, right? Sometimes you can have a hand of like 3 close combats and a gun tank, and realistically, you don't have a lot of ways to engage a board state with that type of hand. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's an example, right? And all of a sudden, that hand is very unappetizing against a white base deck immediately on the floor because now my opponent is just able to just develop with like Rick Dias's and Lifris and flats. And then they start to ask the question, well, the blue red player is not playing any units, so I can just swing at them, right?
Hmm.
And that's where like you have to take, your bad scenarios like that and say like, hey, this is something that can happen with this deck,
Yeah.
but the the benefits of playing this deck are your agency throughout the mid to late game, like how you approach it, right? So this deck definitely rewards meta knowledge and it rewards tight play.
Yes, I firmly agree with that one. If you have a good understanding of what your local player base is going to be on, for instance, if you feel as though the majority of players or it's very heavy aggro in your local area, then I think that this is an excellent choice to be picking up and getting some reps in, taking to events. However, if you feel as though you're going to be playing against a lot of the blue white league militaire deck or unicorn or the O, just the fact that for instance, with the League Militaire deck, if they get a victory going and they're able to draw more than one card with it, it's pretty significant, especially in this type of deck where we're wanting to try and generate advantage and leverage as much card advantage as we can through different means, mostly through burn. Although we do have a little bit of actual draw with Show of Resolve. But when they get to start doing more draw, where for the unicorn deck they can link the Benager, draw the card, or for the O deck they can link the Paptimus and be able to draw the card if they have another Jupitris out, or for the League Militaire deck if they just attacking with the Victory Gundam and being able to draw a card. It can be very detrimental to us, especially if they're able to do this multiple times and just continue generating advantage. I feel like if you're going to be going against a lot of blue white, just generally speaking, this is not a deck that I would be excited to be piloting. Yeah.
Yeah, but again though, it's like it every card can be used differently, right? I had games where like I knew that instead of linking my Kshatriyas, I was just slamming them and swinging with them.
Hmm.
I wasn't going to waste my one Merida on it because I had my Banshee in hand. So I was like, well, you know what? My Kshatriya just trades with one of their units, no problem. It
Yep.
trades with a Gundam Wing for gosh sakes.
Yep.
So it's like knowing how valuable your card is in a matchup can still be the difference between you skill checking your opponent with this deck.
I firmly agree with that one. I guess just to start closing it off, just a couple of things. Our general thoughts on the meta I thought would be maybe good to touch on.
Yeah.
Answer the question: is aggro too good? There was recently a community survey that came out, and one of the consensus that was made by the majority of the community, it seems like, is that aggro is too good. And so I think it'd be good to at least get a quick answer. We can do a whole topic video on it later, but just your general thoughts on that. I'll give my thoughts, and then we can just close out and end this.
Yeah, so the sentiment being aggro is too good. I think, if you look at that headline, it's very like over all encompassing, right?
Yeah,
I think what it is it's probably a factor of many different things. And one of those being is that aggro, as we've all known for a long time playing Gundam now for now about almost a year, is that it's the most consistent strategy in the game because of how this game evaluates your card assets turn by turn, right?
yeah,
There's no difference between a 1 unit and a 10-10 unit when we start swinging at shields.
yep. They
The only
both do the
time
same
that
thing.
they both do the same thing. And a 10-10 comes out on turn 10 or so when a 1-1 comes out on turn 1, turn 2. So you then get asked into this role of like, well, okay, so if that, uh, gap is there, well, what makes it so that like it's not a problem? Well, if you're able to answer those 1-1s with 2-2s, right, or 2-2s with 4-4s or 3-3s, have you?
Hmm.
It's a matter of like how good the value is at a given curve by the turn cycle that you can answer a certain board state. And so when I'm playing aggro, if I play 2-2-2s, if my opponent doesn't play a Lifrith on turn 3, right? I'm now going to start breaking their base. And now all of a sudden, when I go to my next turn cycle, when I swung with those units, I'm playing 2 to 3 more dudes, and my opponent's probably only going to play one unit because they missed a blocker, right, to play on their last
Hmm.
turn. And that's where the game gets ran away with, is because I play like 16 to 20 2/2s, right? That's
Yep.
why we have like these red purple lists that are literally like 2/2
They play
2/2s,
like
like
20 one drops that are just like literally the Zaku Mariner and the O Gundam or the Zero Gundam. I actually don't 100% know
uh,
how to say that name.
Circle Gundam.
Circle Gundam. Yeah, true. Circle Gundam. They just play all the one drops under the sun, and then they play Buku and like ways to be able to break the base. And they're just like, we're this is what we're doing. This is the plan. That this is it.
Yeah, so like the red purple list is like the best example of the extreme of this example.
Hmm.
Is like they play the most efficient cards at level 2 or lower as one drops to win the game before I can stabilize at my level 4 or my level 5 curve, right? Then you have a deck like Blurple where it's a little bit more wider on it. They do play a couple level 4s like Barbados Adept, and Gundam, and sometimes NT1, right? They play these other bigger units because, on average, when they pop up in the game, it can be the difference between you winning against aggro because I have more better units at these turn cycles, right? Like we were saying, if you play 1/1s and I play 2/2s, right? Who's going to start winning? The person that's going to turn over all the 1/1s and then swing in one cycle to kill you in one turn.
Yep.
Um, so again, it depends, but at the end of the day, Gundam with the current state is like there's a lot of it of RNG when it comes to like drawing the right card at the right time because of how many turns it takes. An aggro player can basically checkmate you around turn 3,
Yeah.
turn 4, right? Because if you played one unit on your turn 3 and you are staring at 5 to 6 units on their turn 3, you start to feel like there's not much percentage going your way to win that game.
Yeah.
So the matter is consistency. There was
Yes.
a note about the Gun Official website adding to the tournament docs about best 2 out of 3. So there could be hope that
Yes.
best 2 out of 3 becomes more of a mainstay into the game, which would be cool.
That would be amazing. I think that that would be really, really good for this game, having it so that because okay, so just to go into my thoughts with answering this
Yeah,
question,
let's go for you.
I feel like the biggest issue with the question is aggro too good is the fact that this is a best of one game right now in a best of one world, being proactive with your gameplay and with what your strategy is the best decision. And aggro is inherently proactive gameplay. It also is able to leverage randomness and RNG better for the most part than other decks. Because, for instance, if your opponent has a brick in their hand, they're not able to do anything, well, you get to just kill them because that's what your plan is. You're just playing a bunch of little dudes, attacking in, getting the game over with. However, if you're a control or reactive, more reactive deck like the blue white unicorn deck, though that can sometimes pivot into a more aggressive role, naturally, inherently, you are giving your opponent more time to stabilize and set up a game plan. Aggro, as you're also touching on here with consistency, aggro is also consistent because it gets to play the most redundancy in the game effectively with all of the one drops and the two drops. There isn't really another deck where you get to just be like, oh yeah, I get to just have like 8, 12, 16 copies of this card effectively in my deck. So this is why my strategy is so consistent. While aggro, as long as you have the one drops, the early bodies, the ability to get on the board and get out there, that's all you're looking for. You get to just be consistent, you get to be redundant, and you also get to win without relying on linking specifically. A lot of the really good decks, they're good, but the big thing about them is that you need to be linking. And if you're unlucky and you don't draw the pilots, sometimes you're just losing some games where if you drew the pilot, you should be winning. Whereas with aggro, you can have games where you draw 0 pilots and you still run your opponent over, and it's not particularly close. And that's just the advantage that aggro gets because this is a best of 1. I think that the moment we officially get best of 3 as the staple for this game for events, at least for more competitive events and new types, maybe locals, I think this would be good for. I think we're going to see a large shift in the way that people are viewing this type of a dynamic, especially since you'll then have access to sideboards. You will have more games. And so if you bricked game 1, well, you have the ability to come back in game 2 and game 3. It's not like aggro can just be like, oh, I won the game and I got this. They have to win another game still. And you can sometimes just skill check your opponent because of that.
Yeah, because I think it was 10 card sideboard, right?
Yes,
Mind you though, it has to be the same colors as your main deck,
which is
right?
fair. That's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah, and with that being the case though, it's a matter of like with redundancy, right? They get to play a bunch of tutus. The point of it is like it's the cost, right? Every turn cycle, I get another resource that compounds on itself to say I can do X amount of plays with that resource, right? Because
Yes.
I know, anyone listening to this, you've probably had that game where you counted your opponent's resources and you said, hmm, this could be a blocker and an ale strike and a Kira play, right? It's a lot
Yep.
of resource. It's 8 resource to do that play. Now, if you do that on a smaller scale instead of 8 resources, let's do that at 3 resources, right? I get to play 3 2 2s, and if you only get to play one blocker, decks that play blockers don't play 2 2s, right? So
Nope.
you know the extent of that style of deck, right? There's a reason why, I think at the end of the day, if I had a bunch of 2 2s, you know, it's not the same as opponent having a bunch of Lifriths and Rick Diaz's, right? You don't see
Hmm.
lists that play like 12 total of those cards in the deck because their strategy will lose the game for them more often if they play cards that are less valuable in their deck, right?
Absolutely.
Roll.
And it's not like they don't have that option. There is the flat militia that's out, which is the new Lefrith. There's now with this new set, we have the brand new Rick Diaz. I can't think of what the name of it is, but it's literally a
The
white
plants?
level 3 2 cost that is a 3/3 blocker.
Yeah,
Is
so
it
you can
is it
play
Kaplance?
16 like level 3 blockers.
It is. It is.
Um,
Yeah. This is literally so you can now play 16 of these, but that's not good.
No, it's not. And again, it's the efficiency, right? So it's
Hmm.
efficiency with consistency, right? That is what we're touching on when it comes to is aggregate. It's good
Yes.
right now, but I mean, we also have a new set coming ahead of us with GDO 5. There is a lot to cover on that set. It's
Yes, that set is crazy. Expect more content and us going over specific cards, things that we think are going to happen when that drops with like meta changes, deck lists. We're gonna make sure that we do a whole bunch of content with that one.
yeah, you know what? I think after we get the whole set spoiled, it'd be cool to do like a tier list or something like that.
I think
You
that
know,
would be
like
phenomenal.
what are our predictions for like the best decks to come out of this set, right? Like
Yep.
what can we say?
I think it'd be cool to go and go over each specific color and break down. We can go one by one with cards. With the worst cards, we can go pretty quick, but the highlight ones we do a quick touch on, read out the card, explain what's going on, what we think, why we think it could be good, and then at the end of all of it, we can give each of us our list of what we think the top cards are, and then by the end of the format, we can like revisit and see how close any of us are, or if we were just all idiots.
You know, yeah, because like at the end of the day, there's nothing there's nothing more fun than, being proven wrong because that means there's just that much more to learn about
Yeah,
like how anything works, and
you can get
it,
better, and that's amazing.
yeah.
Uh, I think that this was great. I really appreciate you coming in and talking with me. This has been an awesome discussion. I really appreciate you giving your insights on this deck specifically. How you feel about the meta as a whole and like the different matchups for this. And then the general question on, well, is aggro too good? Yeah. Do you have any last words or anything that you'd like to touch on?
Well, I mean, for this, I'll go into it one more time. Is that for anyone watching, for the deck profile, if you like strategies where you have agency throughout the early game and going for big finishers, I think this is a deck for you. You know, you getting to say and call the shots on where you want your effective points to be led for a win, right? It rewards tight gameplay and it rewards style, right?
Yeah.
Because I will say, thinking about second handing a Merida or a Nian for the late game for a G-Quux or a Banshee, there's no other fun way to do that, honestly.
Yeah, sometimes just sandbagging it and then late you just have it. It feels so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I can't think of anything else to talk about.
Yeah.
Everyone go and like, subscribe, comment, share. Check out our team channel, Team Average. Go and check out our gameplay video that we recently put up there. It's me and Taylor going over doing commentary over a fantastic game of a blue white unicorn versus blue green 1 year war. We also have some deck profiles up on that channel. Please go and like, subscribe, comment, share over there. Uh, and yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the day. I hope everyone is able to win their next locals, win their next new types, win a regionals, win in life. You got this. I believe in you. Peace out.
Peace.